disability attorney for over 35 years, and I want to just correct one thing. John's going to talk about the disability and not the pension. Disability is what he does. And I've known John for 7 or 8 years, and John is the only disability attorney that I know that understands the Bell Roselle disability plan, and he's tried to change it. He's tried to get an audience with Roger Goodell, with Steve Smith, Gene Upshaw, but they do not want to, but they won't give him that audience because they don't want to hear what he has to say. And the reason I say that is, and I'm not going to steal John's thunder, but, and John will agree with me, I'm sure, that the current NFL disability plan is illegal. And John's going to explain why it's illegal. I've been seeking benefits from the NFL since 1979. That's a long time. And when I was the NFL's own doctors rated me 80% or greater disabled in 95, I was denied the benefit, told to go find a sedentary job, but to tell your employer that you need to rest frequently on the job. The bottom line is, who's going to hire you? It's just, you're damaged goods. And my question is, with the plan, some of the aspects of it that are just glaring violations would be the vocational aspect. There is no vocational aspect. In corporate America, if you become disabled, you see a vocational specialist and they'll test you. And they'll decide what you're able to do, what you're not able to do, and what types of jobs you might be able to do, and then you'll try it short term. And if it works and it pays a salary that you can live on, well, then you give it a try. But in the NFL disability Bell plan, that's totally missing. The other aspect of it is everybody on the disability board is either in an extreme conflict of interest, everywhere from Tom Condon, who's no longer there, to Dave Duerson, who was there, and he's no longer, he killed himself, to Jeff Van Note, and now Sam McCullum. They either work for the league, they're employed by the NFLPA, but the saddest thing is they have no training in disability or medical care. So you have people that have no training at all making medical decisions that affect your life. And I remember that, and then I'll let John speak because
keep going, we're doing well.
I talked to Jimmy Giles recently. Jimmy Giles and I were teammates in Tampa for a couple of years. And John can talk about Jimmy because Jimmy is one of John's clients that he's trying to get disability for. And I talked to Jimmy in the last month. And Jimmy shared this with me. He says, Dave, he said, I called Dave Duerson 10 months before he killed himself. And I said, Dave, why isn't the disability committee giving me disability? Look at my injuries. I meet all the qualifications, but they keep denying me. They're giving him the lowest level of disability. The reality is, because of his injuries and he qualified for Social Security disability, he should get full disability. And you're going to be shocked. Well, you're not shocked. You're going to find it interesting what Dave Duerson told me. Dave Duerson said, Jimmy, the Gruen Law Group tells us how to vote. What kind of scheme is that? that's the chances you have of getting disability. And, D. Smith said about 3 years ago, he had this big, at the Super Bowl, he says, the Room Law Group is gone. They don't represent, as far as the disability plan, I got rid of them. But if you look at the LM2, the Groom Law Group, Larry Lomedy, they're paid by the NFLPA, the NFL, and the Bell Roselle Disability Plan. So the reality is, they work for all three of them. And Larry Lomedy's answer was, because I asked him, Larry Lomedy is the lawyer that, when I complained enough, Roger Goodell called me. One day at PR called him. I took 28 minutes of his time. I wouldn't let him off the phone. And at the end of the conversation, Roger says, Dave, who do you think I am, God? And I said, no, Roger, but you get the power to clean this mess up. Well, he sends me Larry Lomedy, a lawyer that works for Aiken and Gump. Aiken and Gump is the 18th largest law firm in the world. And Larry was going to help me. Well, about 4 months later, I get an anonymous thread on the blog saying, Dave, you better be careful about what you say. And my editor, Robert Lee, he understands the technology way better than most people I know, certainly better than anybody that the NFL has. He traced it back on their IP address, and it came out of Larry Lomedy's office. He could even tell you what desk it came out of. Larry Lomedy's answer was, it was a young intern, and she's been disciplined, and she learned a very hard lesson in life. And I'm thinking, that's how much the NFL or the NFLPA wants to help you. So, it's just, I'm never going to give up fighting for my benefits, and that's why the blog was started, because of the disability scam. I want to help the guys that nobody hears about. The Dwight Harrisons. Dwight Harrison, his wife left him and his son hung himself. Talk about a sad story, and Dwight is seriously impaired cognitively. He may have a 3rd or 4th grade level of understanding what's going on. It's just a sad situation. And there's some really sad stories out there. And they can't afford it. Coming to these types of conferences, they have families, the brains are scrambled, they hear conflicting stories and information, and they don't know what to do. So, you can't fix, I can't fix everything. I don't know if I can fix anything, but what I can do is I can put the facts up on the blog, and you decide. And as I said, the blog was started because of the disability scam, and John Hogan. John Hogan's a great guy. He's fighting for all of us. And so, I'm going to introduce John. And John can tell you, some of the ins and the outs of the problems he's had. But, the last thing is, it seems the longer that things go on, we keep hearing, they're going to give us less, but it's really more. And the latest thing that I've heard is, there's a couple cases. One is Stuart Andrews. He's up in player that played in the NFL. He lives up in Canada now. And he qualified for full disability, and the NFL, turned him down. And the doctor that turned him down never even examined him. You believe that? Never even Dr. Bach. He's the new Dr. No. I don't know where they get these guys at, but. And Stuart sent me the email where Dr. Bach turned him down. He never even put a finger on it. And but the next sentence, he was crying for his $500 fee. Well, a couple of years ago, Harold Henderson called Andrew Stewart. I think it was on some vacation day, holiday, or I'm not sure which one it was, and says, Andrew, we gotta work this out. Andrew says, nothing to work out, I want my benefits. Well, I spoke to Andrew about a month ago. As I said, Andrew, how's your claim going? Because you got another favorable ruling by the judge. The judge ruled, clearly, you deserve full disability. And he said, Dave, he said, I finally got those dirty, I'm going to leave it, the words off that he said, the pay, but I had to sign this non-disclosure. I can't talk about it. Now, in all fairness, what that's put his family through, I mean, what he's been through, if he did talk about it and he lost his benefits, I guarantee you, that's how he survives. And he finally gets it. So, you know what? I don't blame him, for not talking about it, because if he does, he'll lose his benefits. And he's fought all this time for it. And, and then Jimmy Giles told me, I'll let John talk about it, but that's the new scheme that the Groom Law Group, and the Groom Law Group, believe me, they run the disability plan. Make no bones about it. They are the ones that run that plan. And Doug L., they've done it since 1994, and the more claims that they deny, the more money they make, the more fees they get. And so, without saying any more, because John can enlighten us on a lot more of the details, I'd like to introduce disability attorney John Hogan.
Good morning. Now that Dave's given my presentation, I'll be happy to take any questions. And I do need to correct Dave on one thing. He said that the Pete Rozelle plan was illegal. Dave, illegal is a sick bird. It's unlawful.
Correct.
I also want to give you greetings from my friend and client, Jimmy Giles. Jimmy had wanted to be here. He planned on being here, but he's in tough shape. I think he is awaiting some back surgery in addition to all the other orthopedic problems he has, and it's pretty tough to get on a plane and get here. But he sends his regards and best wishes. I also want to say hello to my good friend Bruce Laird. Bruce, as you know, has been a tireless advocate for getting better everything for retired players. And unfortunately, Bruce has a full-time job, so he can't advocate full-time. And he had a business engagement this week, but he sends his best regards, and I'll be back in touch with him about what transpires here. I was really, as you all were, just really taken with what Randy had to say. And in the work that I do with retired players, I'm so amazed when a player's had a long marriage. And Randy, even though you guys might have been divorced, I mean, you were still there with Jeff. And many of you guys, retired players, you're not the same person you were when you were married. And, the guys that I deal with, and I think Dave would attest to this because his wife's been there with him too, God bless the wives for sticking in there and enduring what they do. And certainly, despite all the problems my disabled player clients have, if their wife is with them, their life is blessed. We used to have a saying every time we would get together for retired players' conferences or issues, and you hear the stories here. I hear new stories all the time. A lot of it's repeat of what we've heard. And the saying we used to say all the time is you can't make this stuff up. That's the cleaner version. Lately, though, I've been saying something more and more, and I think it's more applicable. And it's when we're dealing with the NFL, concussion problems, the Del Roselle plan, the Boone Law Group. It's where does the arrogance stop and the stupidity begin? The good news is, and I'll talk about both Jimmy's case and Andrew Stewart's a little bit, excuse me. We're getting somewhere. Andrew had a great victory in court. I have a partial victory in Jimmy's case that I expect to turn into a full victory soon. They're not unbeatable anymore. The shell is cracking. We're getting places. We've got fabulous attorneys like Jason Luksevich on the concussion cases. You guys now have great attorneys helping you, and I think unfortunately it's too slow. It takes too long for some guys, but we're getting there. The disability plan was amended very slightly under the new CBA. The biggest change is that, there's 4 categories of disability, total and permanent disability under the plan. The first 2 categories are for guys who become disabled either while they're an active NFL player or shortly thereafter. The maximum time for shortly thereafter is 1 year. So for most retired guys, they're looking at the 3rd and 4th category of disability. And what so many of us have been interested in so long, we used to call football degenerative. And it was where you had to be found totally disabled within 15 years of your last credited season, and the disability had to arise from football. That's what we're litigating in Jimmy's case. They acknowledge he's disabled. It's whether it was football related. And then there was the inactive, which Dave got. It was for people who were either found disabled after 15 years or it wasn't related to football. Under the new CBA, they've taken away the requirement that your disability be football related. Why is that? I heard somebody say
How
something.
do you know the difference? How difficult it is to argue where the injuries came from?
Well, that's a good answer. But the thing that, speaking of long, happy marriages, I'll be celebrating 36 years this summer with my wonderful wife, who fully has supported me in my ventures with retired players. And she and I would talk about this over the years and the fights that we've had. And she used to say it's all about the money. And I used to say, I don't think it's all about the money because there's a lot of money out there. What I've always thought is that the reason that they wanted to keep so many guys from getting disability related to football is Congress is watching or was watching. And they don't want to have to account for how many guys became totally disabled as a result of playing football in the National Football League. And why is that? They don't want Congress or OSHA coming in and writing the rules of the game. Now, that's my take on it. And that was supported, I think, by this change in the disability plan. I had a reporter call me recently, and he's working on some concussion things and some disability things. And he said, "Have you seen the latest NFL retired player scorecard?" And I said, "No, I haven't seen one in a while." So he sent it to me. It gives the number of players who are on total and permanent disability. And it gives the number of players who are on the 88 plan. And, a couple other categories. And so he said, we're on the phone. He shoots it to my computer, so I'm looking at it as we're talking. And he said, "What do you think of that?" I said, well, it's kind of funny that they call this a scorecard, because it doesn't tell you how many guys have applied and been denied. Which I told her reminded me of a former old Buffalo Bill, Isaiah. I don't know if you played with Ernie Gorlick, but certainly you knew him. And after Ernie's career with the Bills, he was a local big star in Buffalo. He decided to have a career as a sportscaster. And so one of the local stations had him on, and he didn't last real long. And it was for things like this. I remember one night, he's giving the sports cast, and he says, oh, this just in, an updated score from the Yankees-Red Sox game. In the 8th inning, it's Yankees 6. So, without the whole story, the scorecard is kind of useless. Dave touched briefly on some of the problems with the plan. He could probably give my presentation because he and I have discussed the problem so much. On one hand, it will be easier for some guys to qualify for the higher category of disability because they've removed this football requirement, and that's good. But there's still a lot of problems for a guy who tries to qualify under the general standard. The general standard would be is if you're not on Social Security disability, you would have to go through their gauntlet of their doctors, their neutral physicians. And there's a lot of problems with that. First of all, they use only a few carefully chosen doctors, and I think their exams are very incomplete. They send a questionnaire that they've been using forever, where they detail all of the players' injuries, and then the doctor has to say, is this due to NFL football? And recently I've had 2 cases that had almost exactly the same thing. Both players had significant problems to all of their from the shoulders down to their fingers. And I look at Elvin's hands and fingers. A lot of you guys, problems with the shoulders, problems with the elbows, surgeries on. How many problems with the wrist? Your fingers, out of joint, going in different directions. So in both of these exams, this doctor noted that these players had these problems with both upper extremities. Yes, due to football, NFL football. And then they asked the doctor, is this player totally disabled to the extent that he cannot engage in any job for remuneration or profit? And the doctor says no. And so then they ask him what is totally improper. The doctor's not qualified to say what kind of jobs a person can do. But they say, what kind of work can he do? So they'll say, sedentary to light. Well, if a person is limited to sedentary to light, and unless they have some very proficient skills, you need good use of both of your upper extremities to do a job. And they totally ignored it. And I tell you, one of the reasons I benefited, yesterday we were talking about California workers' compensation. Any of those who've been through it know that those doctors do extensive examinations. Dr. Einbund, Dr. Newland, their reports are 40 pages long. They discuss everything. And it just so happens both of these players had fairly recent reports from California that significantly detail these upper extremity problems and place limitations on them. And I am positive I'm going to be able to use that and win their Social Security case, which then will in turn win their NFL case. But again, if a guy is not able to access Social Security, he's at the mercy of these NFL doctors in their inadequate exams. And let me clarify this. A medical doctor is not trained or qualified to tell you if you can work or what jobs you can do. Rather, what they're supposed to do is set forth the limitations you have and base upon a full work week. You don't need to be an invalid. It's 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. How much walking and standing can you do? How much lifting and carrying? Do you need to alternate between sitting and standing? Do you need to take excessive rest breaks? Do you have limitations on the use of your hands? And unless you know these things, someone who is trained vocationally can't tell you whether or not this person could actually work. The other thing that they do a very poor job of is, obviously more and more we're seeing guys with the cognitive problems. So they'll send him, the NFL plan will send him to a neutral position for his orthopedic problems. And he says, well, he's not totally disabled, he can do sedentary leg work. And then they send him to a neurologist or a neuropsychologist to test the cognitive problems. And he says, well, he's got problems, but he's not totally disabled. Well, if you put the two together, you might have somebody who cannot sustain work. And that's one of the reasons why I highly recommend, if you can take the Social Security route to get established your disability, that you do it. Social Security isn't necessarily easy. It's not necessarily a picnic, but we have a lot of well-established rules. And one of the primary rules is you have to consider all of a person's problems in combination. The plan still does a terrible job of putting those together. Dave touched on both the board and the Groom Law Group, and I'll speak a little bit about those. As Dave mentioned, the board appears to do what the Groom Law Group recommends they do. And I don't want to say in their defense, but to explain it, the retirement board meets quarterly. I believe they're volunteers. They're not paid for it. They probably get a per diem or expenses to go to the meetings 4 times a year. And they might have a lot of material to cover. I don't know what Sam would call him if he's working or not, but all the other people, particularly the people representing the NFL, they have full-time jobs. And they're supposed to go through all the material for the disability claims. I imagine they don't have the time to do it, and they rely on the recommendations of the Groom Law Group. What's this case about? What should we do? Now, if it's a case where a person's been sent to one of their doctors and the doctor says he's not disabled or he is disabled, that's pretty simple. They just say, okay, fine. In my experience, I've never seen them question an unfavorable medical opinion, but they certainly have questioned favorable ones. Andrew Stewart's case is an example. But it's clear to me, and there's some case law established out there now. The plan is supposed to be governed by federal law or ERISA law. And one of the things that we want to consider sometimes when we have an ERISA case is there a conflict of interest with the decision maker? And several other players, including Brent Boyd, in my case, Andrew Stewart's case, several of us have raised the issue that the board's conflicted. But the courts have come out and said, well, there's not really a conflict of interest because it's what we call a balanced board. There's 3 members there to represent the NFL, and there's 3 members there to represent the players. Well, that's legal theory only. It is not the fact. The retired guys, for whatever reason, aren't looking at the records. They're not asking the questions. They're not really advocating for the retired players like they should be. And I think this was pointed out to me after Dave Duerson's suicide, when Alan Swartz, who at that time was still on the NFL and concussions beat, and he asked Doug Ellie said, well, after Duerson's suicide, you think maybe the board needs to revisit some cases? And Doug Ellie said, no, all our decisions are usually unanimous. Why? To me, that said, what's going on here? But anyways, there's supposedly, in my experience, they're just not advocating for the retired players like they're supposed to be doing in theory. And in the Eller case, or the first Eller case, that was one of the things that we were trying to interject and trying to tell the court is, the PA really isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing for retired players in some regards, including on the Disability and Retirement Board. I'm going to talk very briefly about the Groom Law Group. Hey, they're a preeminent labor law firm, maybe the best in the country, and they do an outstanding job for their clients. Problem is I can't tell who their client is. Their general counsel to the plan is Dave made reference until Gene Upshaw was in there. They were also advisor to the PA side at the board, and I think Dee severed that tie, but they're still the general counsel. And as Robert found at the tax filing, Groom Law Group was a couple years ago was paid $919,000 for work for the PA, which I assume was above and beyond what they do as general counsel. Now, as general counsel to the plan, the Groom Law Group owes a fiduciary duty of loyalty, skill, and care to all the players who have a claim before it. Technically, they're kind of neutral. They have to balance the interests of the players with the interests of the plan. So theoretically, they have to guard the plan that only those who are qualified receive benefits. But on the same hand, they're supposed to, I don't want to say help, but make sure that the guys who qualify get the benefits that they're entitled to. Well, and anytime I talk to an attorney who, either other disability attorneys who don't do NFL work, or just other attorneys in general, when I talk about the Groom Law Group and their conflict of interest, they just shake their heads. In first year in law school, we take professional responsibility, conflicts of interest, and it's the responsibility of lawyers to avoid a conflict of interest. One client that has a conflict of interest against another. We're also supposed to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. And that's to help keep the public's confidence strong in the courts and the law. So the Groom Law Group, okay, fine, the general counsel, they pretty much run the disability show. But if a case is denied, the next level of appeal is filing suit in the United States District Court. And they represent the plan against the player's interests in district court. And in fact, I want to say this carefully, again, it's on even the appearance of impropriety. As Dave mentioned, he'd been told secondhand that the Groom Law Group told the guys how to vote. Well, if that's the case, then if they are recommending that a case be denied, they're then put in the position of, hey, we can make a lot more money on this case now, because our firm's going to defend it. And our firm's going to defend it at very, very high DC law firm rates. And to give an idea of the kind of amount of money that they charge, Mercury Morris, a few years ago, discovered that they had been paid for work in submitting briefs to the Supreme Court. A few years ago, there was an important issue in disability law. We call it, in Social Security, we call it the treating physician rule. God bless you. And under the treating physician rule, if a treating physician is supportive of a person's disability, and that opinion is well supported by the objective evidence, and if there's no substantial evidence to the contrary, then the treating physician's opinion rules. So the Ninth Circuit had a couple of cases, Ninth Circuit, California. They said, we think that this treating physician rule should be applicable in disability cases covered by ERISA, and the plans covered by ERISA. So the cases were appealed to the United States Supreme Court. The Groom Law Group, on behalf of the plan, filed 2 amicus briefs. Amicus is a friend of the court. You're not directly involved, but you have an interest in the outcome. So they filed 2 briefs. One was 15 pages, the other was 16 pages. It was identical fact issue. They were essentially a consolidated report. Pages, most of which was duplicative, they were paid $142,000 by the plan. And Mercury filed Freedom of Information or something like that and filed a complaint with the Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor says, no, you know, it was money well spent because that might help, you know, keep them from paying in some case. And my thought is, why in heaven's name would the plan, which is there supposedly to benefit players, want to fight against the treating physician rule? Why wouldn't you want to have a case granted where the treating doctor's opinion is well supported and nothing to the contrary? Abusive. And anyways, the last thing directly on the Groom Law Group is the kind of crazy deal we got going on in Jimmy Giles' case. When Jimmy's case was in front of the retirement board administratively, again, there was the Groom Law Group as counsel to the plan and owing a fiduciary duty to Jimmy. So they denied the case. We filed in court. They're then representing the plan against Jimmy. So last year, about this time, we argued the case in federal court in Baltimore. And really, it was one of the highlights of my legal career. Doug L. said hello to me with a big smile on his face before the hearing, and afterwards he turned and ran away. But anyways, the court remanded Jimmy's case because of errors the plan had made and abuses of discretion. So they sent it back to the retirement board for reconsideration in light of the judge's order. So guess who's back there as general counsel to the plan? You know, the Groom Law Group's there. I'm not there. So now they're back in the dual role of attorney for Jimmy, attorney against Jimmy. Anyway, so I'm not going to go into great detail about Jimmy's case, but again, I think we made some significant progress getting the remand from the court. The decision is on the blog, and I was happy to hear that, you know, not all court cases are published, but I got a notice from the court, Jimmy's case is going to be a published case. It's going to be in the law books, so Jimmy's kind of immortalized for you know, taking some good whacks at the plan and showing that they've abused their discretion in a couple regards. But the board met in February and considered Jimmy's case and came up with another denial that I believe is completely contrary to what the judge has already held. And I talked to the, you know, I won't get into the details of it now. Hopefully soon I can share them all with you. But in talking to the attorney from the Groom Law Group the other day, you know, about going forward,
And he's asking me if I'm going to go back to court. I said, heck yes, absolutely. And I said to him, are you sure you want to go back to court? And you know, so anyways, we'll see, but we're making progress. One of the things that I want to mention, and I hope I don't get too technical here, that I think is, I wish there was some way that I could get either the league or the PA to tell guys about this. And it's keeping your Social Security insured status. As I say, I think unless a guy is hardly walking and talking, I think the preferred method of establishing disability is going the Social Security route. But what I'm seeing is some guys, after they stop playing, they're not working. And if they're not working, they're not paying into Social Security. And to get your Social Security disability, you need to have what we call insured status. It can get complicated, but very briefly, if you've worked steadily, let's take a guy who's had a 7, 8, 9-year NFL career, stops working. Generally, he or anybody else who's been working steadily will have Social Security insured status for about 5 years after that. So you've got to establish you became disabled within that 5 years. If your disability happens in the 6th year or the 7th year, you're out of luck. And I'm seeing that more and more with younger guys. They might, maybe they're doing okay, they got a few dollars in the bank, they're not working. But I think it only takes, I think it's $1,140 of earnings to get a quarter of coverage. So for less than $5,000 worth of earnings, you can get your 4 quarters of coverage for a whole year. It could be part-time work, it could be self-employment work. And what I've seen, I'm thinking of one guy who was a pretty big star who's let his insured status run out. I know that, for example, card signings, autograph sessions, anything that you might be compensated for, I think usually tax accountant is saying, well, you can write that off, business expense or whatever. You actually need to declare a little expense and keep your insured status going. That's all I'll say on that. Again, I'd love to be able, the NFL alumni had some programs. I think the PA has programs on career transition, and that's great. I mean, if you come out of the league and you're healthy enough and savvy enough and smart enough to be a broadcaster or go on to business school or anything like that, that's fabulous, wonderful, God bless you. But not everybody is. And more importantly, even if you are for 5 years or 10 years, maybe in the 11th year, the 12th year, the 14th year, you become disabled. So they've got to be better advised about their disability benefits and as I think, keeping their Social Security insured status. I wanted to mention a little bit about the Andrew Stewart case that Dave touched on. I thought it was a great case, and Andrew was a player mainly, I think, for Cleveland in the NFL, but then he went on to the Canadian Football League and ended up living, I think it's in Vancouver, and he was pretty banged up from his playing days. So it's my understanding that he had tried for a number of years to apply for NFL disability, and they kept telling him, no, you're not eligible. I guess because he lived in Canada or something like that. Finally, he realized or was told, yeah, you can apply. So he applied for NFL disability, and he was within his 15 years, I believe, for the football degenerative. But the plan didn't have any doctor in Canada. They didn't have one of their neutral physicians in Canada. So they found an eminently qualified sports orthopedist near him in Vancouver. And this doctor, I've happened to see the different documents in this. This doctor, not being one of the NFL's normal doctors, did the most detailed and thorough NFL disability exam I'd ever seen. And this doctor, thank heavens he had access to Andrew's prior records, he specifically separated the injuries he received in the NFL from those he received in the Canadian Football League. And then he specifically indicated why he felt Andrew was disabled due to his NFL injuries. Well, that wasn't received very kindly back at the Bell Roselle office. And as I say, to my knowledge, I've never heard of the plan going back and asking the doctor a question about a case where the doctor said the guy's not disabled. But in this case, they went back to this doctor several times. And he just kept digging in. And he gave a great explanation. And as a longtime disability attorney, I agreed completely with it. So they weren't happy with that. As Dave mentions, they sent the file, but not the man, to one of their medical advisory physicians to take a look. And without examining him, his opinion was he's not disabled, not even close. Period. Didn't explain it away, didn't say why he disagreed with the other doctor, didn't analyze it, just not disabled, not even close. So they denied Andrew's case. Andrew hired an attorney to file suit. The case was eventually tried. Usually in a ERISA case, we don't try it. We argue motions and briefs. But Andrew tried the case and got a favorable decision. And actually, some of the law from Andrew's case we used in Jimmy Giles' case. And one of those things was the plan more recently has had a medical director. But the medical director is supposed to give...
He's not supposed to make an opinion on disability, which he had done in Andrew's case and in my case. So it's my understanding that Andrew is now in case status, and so he's taking a good whack at him. And we're still working on Jimmy's case, but I think that we're going to about this time next year we'll tell you all about a happy verdict. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover. I'll certainly answer any questions. Yes?
Hi, my name's Susan. I'm married to Jim Marshall.
Okay.
And I've got two questions for you. The first one is, can you tell me the members of that board?
The members from the PA side are Jeff Van Note, who's been on it forever. Robert Smith, who used to be with the Vikings and is on which network? NFL Network.
He works for the NFL as a broadcaster.
And Sam McCollum.
Sam McCollum. And Sam McCollum, in his email, refers... Sam McCollum refers to himself as Dave Duerson's replacement. And Sam has no training at all. Nice guy.
And then,
They're all nice. And then
who's on from the NFL?
you know, from the NFL, I'm not well, those are the guys appointed by the NFLPA.
Okay.
From the NFL management side, I'm not sure of
who is president of the Ravens and an attorney by education.
John. Then I'd like to say that the seventh non-voting member is Commissioner Roger Goodell, and he appoints his lawyer, Harold Henderson, longtime lawyer for the NFL.
Well, they're usually, like Dick Cass is president of the Ravens. There was a woman who was executive vice president of the Chiefs or something like that. I forget who that is. But let me give you... No, not plan administrators, not... And let me give you an example of that. In Jimmy Giles' case, Jimmy, one good thing about the plan, they let you file applications over the years. Jimmy had filed in 1995 and was sent to a couple of doctors and ultimately to their medical advisory physician, Dr. Tria, for an examination. And under the plan, the medical advisory physician's opinion is binding. What he says is it. So Dr. Tria in 1996 said Jimmy is limited to sedentary work as a result of his NFL injuries. Okay? So when Jimmy took advantage of the new provision that said if you're found disabled by Social Security, we'll accept the fact that you're disabled. So they granted him inactive. And then the further issue was did it arise from football? Well, when the Social Security Administration made their decision, the reason they found Jimmy disabled was because he was limited to sedentary work. So all along I was saying, connect the dots. You know, your doctor here said he was limited to sedentary due to NFL football, and now Social Security is saying he's disabled, he's limited to sedentary work. It's obviously due to football. Connect the dots. And they just wouldn't do it. And I'd be writing letters, you know, and citing Dr. Tria. Well, it turns out this Dr. Tria report, which was so crucial, which I received from the Groom Law Group as part of Jimmy's file, was never seen by the retirement board when they were making their current decision. So how can you connect the dots if you don't see the first dot? But more importantly, why wasn't Jeff Van Note or Sam McCullum, or actually I think Duerson was alive, why weren't they saying, where's this Dr. Tria report that Hogan keeps talking about? What's he talking about? Nobody did that. And in fact, the main reason that the court sent Jimmy Giles' case back to the board, rather than, I think, just grant it outright, was because it looked pretty much, and I'm convinced, that the retirement board had not seen all of the records in his file.
If you could speak,
Brandy, we can't hear you.
Yeah, maybe you come to the middle podium and speak.
Just in reference to that question, real quick, when I went back and refiled for degenerative disc in '95, I found out who the board members were at that time. I wanted to go to Washington. I was willing to go to Washington and go before the board. They wouldn't allow that. But what they did do is they allowed me to get the names of all the board members, and I personally sent Jeff's file, which was about this thick at that time, to each one of the board members prior to their board meeting, and that's one thing I would suggest anybody does.
Well, yeah, Brandy, obviously that's great advocacy, but, you know, I didn't realize until a couple days before we went to Baltimore to argue the case of this omission. I've been thinking all along, well, this is part of his file. You guys sent me the file. This is in here. And what I realized was I was getting ready for the hearing, whenever the retirement board considers records or letters, they put a little stamp down there, RBM, retirement board meeting, and the date. And all of a sudden I realized that those records were missing, where they weren't stamped from the retirement board. So all of a sudden I thought, oh my gosh, you know. Yes.
So my second question is, for those players who are pre-93, who are free a long time, that are 65, 70, 75 years old.
Right.
For example, my husband applied for disability back in the 80s and was denied, and never went back and tried again. Now he's in his 70s. I'm assuming that he cannot try and get disability because he's not a working age anymore.
Yes, but something that we've wanted for a long time, I've advocated for a long time. I would like the Department of Labor to come in and audit the plan. I've talked with a couple of different law firms, that are entertaining the possibility of filing a class action. And I think if the plan was ever audited and we could get in and look and see how they did things, perhaps they could reopen and revise the way they, cases.
Is there any statistical data available of people who apply for NFL disability and been rejected?
They have the statistics. They also have the records of guys. No, it's not public. No.
If I could just interject, I've asked for that several times, and what they say is, well, we'd like to give it to you, but according to HIPAA, we're not allowed to do that. So they just don't give it to you. But, boy, I tell you, what John's saying about a Department of Labor audit, boy, I tell you what, that would really put under a microscope what's going on. But, here we go again. The only way we're going to begin to get any justice is drag them into court and sue them, because if we ask them to do the right thing and do what's morally correct, we'll get some lip service, but the reality is that's all we're going to get is lip service. And the only way to get them to respect us and realize that we're serious is force them to pay us what we earned. We don't want any charity, and they turn all these benefits, so-called benefits, into a charity. They'll pay, they'll buy you, they may, if you get on your knees and you beg them hard enough, a bed or pay your light bill or your phone bill. And then when you say, wow, I need more, they'll say you're ungrateful. So, that's what you're up against. Jason?
Dave, I want to elaborate on that.
Would you please, yeah, and I don't mean to take over, John, but I just, what, it's...
Hey, John, get out.
Let me elaborate on the court of law issue. After we filed our first case, the Maxwell case, and then we filed the Pear case, the second concussion case, the next day the 2011 CBA came out and they snuck in there a neurocognitive disability benefit. I get asked all the time, what is the neurocognitive disability benefit? Can I do that, and can I do the concussion lawsuit? And John, do you know if anybody's even qualified for this yet?
Jay, thanks for bringing that up, and that's funny. I think it's so worthless, I didn't even mention it in my presentation. Yeah, I think last year when I was out here, I called it an illusory benefit. There's an illusion that there's a benefit there, but there's not really. The way that they've got it pegged, I can't imagine of anybody who would qualify for it. I'm unaware of anyone who's qualified for it. And yeah. Yeah, as I say, illusory benefit, and and I think it was just one of the things that they threw in there real quick is a little bit of the defense or the PR campaign. We're serious about concussions. We're doing something about it. Alvin?
If you could, really...
I'll repeat his question.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Players who've received what? It was in that incomplete scorecard, and I want to say it's about 1,100. And of course, that's the different categories. I'd say the great majority are the lower paying category. And as
in 2007, at the congressional hearings, I think it was 284.
well, in the numbers, yeah, and the numbers have gone up significantly because they've accepted the Social Security. But again, I think the vast majority of those are the lower paying amounts. And as far as guys eligible for the 88 plan, I think there's now about 300 it's either 315 or 350. But again, unless you know how many guys have applied and been denied, it's not a really valid statistic.
Yeah. And if I could just say, the only reason that it did go up is because it had to go up. I mean, when you take professional football, the most dangerous sport in the world. And as far as professions, I don't know if there's any more dangerous professions, other than being maybe a soldier in the Army. The ratios of 207 players receiving disability in the NFL would say this is the safest business you could go into, the safest job.
Well, and David, I want to say there's another reason that the total number of disabled has gone up, and it's you and Robert and all the publicity, because I talk to guys all the time that aren't aware of the benefit, or they might have missed out on it for years. You guys are finally starting to learn that no, exactly. Vernon, that's what drives me crazy. Let me tell you briefly a sad story. An excellent all-pro player, you guys all know, I will not give his name, applied for Social Security. And because he hadn't worked or paid into the system a long time, he was limited to SSI, which is essentially federal welfare for the disabled. They found him disabled, and he was getting $600 a month. Okay? So somebody, said, hey, you need to call this guy. He's not getting anything from the NFL. Well, it took literally about 4 months to do it. All we had to do was get his Social Security decision to the plan. He's now going to get, I think, $50,000 a year. And he missed out on it for like 3 years, just not knowing about it.
And living at $600 a month in food stamps.
Yeah.
How long does that
How-
plan been since the 94 Warren agreement or the 88 plan?
You mean the originally?
That was after Mackey died. That had just
Yeah.
5 or 6 years.
Well, the 88 plan had started before John had died. Yeah. Named for him. Yes. Yeah.
I
Vern.
would say 2001, right around 2001, because the client that I spoke about yesterday was on it for about 10 years and died this year. So 2001, 2002, somewhere around there.
And that includes assisted living, right? The 88 plan, or the
The 88 plan is, you have to meet their criteria for dementia. And there's 2 levels of payment. They'll reimburse you if you're in assisted living, or if you need assistance at home. Now, it can't be, a lot of the wives, family members are pretty ticked off that the wife can't be the one that gets the money to take care of the guy. It's got to be a skilled nurse. Yeah.
If I could just say this, excuse me, John. Gene Upshaw used to always make the statement that in the NFL, we have the most generous benefits package in all of professional sports. Well, a half-truth is still a lie, because in theory, that may be the case. But the problem is, try to access it. You can't access it. It's, as John says, it's an illusionary benefit. It's there, but it's not there. And I really want to hear the question back here from
hang on, Rick.
from Rick.
One other thing I wanted to say, one of the other benefits that's there that amazingly you don't need to be vested for is line of duty benefit. But at least once a month, I talk to a guy who meets the medical criteria, but he's missed the deadline. I mean, that's just terrible. Rick, you had a
John, can you tell me, how does civil racketeering apply to our union? How does the term civil racketeering apply to our union? And the other question, with the Brain lawsuit, would that lead to opening of the medical records, which in turn will lead to opening of who got disability, what your injuries were? How do civil racketeering and how does the Brain lawsuits all tie into? Because to me, without the collusion of the union, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. And how does it all tie together?
I'm going to defer the last question to Jason. But let me say that I have been trying to talk to some attorneys about what's involved in RICO law. I don't know it. RICO is essentially the racketeering. I've trying to get a handle on it. I think there's some other attorneys who've talked to me. I think they're trying to get a handle on it. And without making an allegation of a either civil or criminal act, it's clear to me that the PA has been complicit with the NFL, at least in keeping down the number of guys who were disabled as a result of NFL football. I can't come to any other conclusion. I mean, you know, the money's there, you know, and they've been pretty good at paying these guys the inactive disability. But as far as the guys for football degenerative, and again, what I come back to, I've been dealing with retired players for about 10 years now. I just think they tried to keep the number down of guys who are disabled due to football because they're concerned about the harm it might do to the game, because you don't want the Labor Department coming in and writing the rules of the game. But Jason, why don't you get back up to the mic?
What medical records?
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, I mean, does anybody in this room have their medical records or any of their records from when they play? There are some. I know there are some. That was partial joking there. But in all seriousness, yes, that will be the discovery phase, assuming as Mr. Girardi and I were speaking yesterday, would get to that phase. Yeah, that's one of the first things that we have to do is ask the NFL and all the teams to turn over the medical records for each and every player. Absolutely.
Yeah. You know what, Jason?
I've heard that before.
Yeah. I would just like to say that concussions in the NFL never existed until 2010. So I want to know where they're going to get those records from.
Yeah, that was another thing. The injury, one of the things that I've always asked is, when was the first time a concussion was identified on an injury report? So I did some homework about a year ago, and I came across an article called Bloody Sunday. And I'm from those of you that don't know, I'm from Pittsburgh. And this article was an old article in the Pittsburgh Press that was done by an individual that followed, maybe I take that back, it was a Tribune Review, there's two Pittsburgh papers, an individual that was following injury reports in the league. So I called him up, and he still happened to work with it, and we had this really long, lengthy conversation. And I said, you wrote in your article that there were some guys that had some concussions. I said, was that actually in the injury report? He said, you know, Jason, it wasn't. It just said head. So I assumed it was a concussion because I did my investigation behind it. Or it said maybe neck. So that was just a little tidbit I wanted to share with you.
Isaiah?
Yeah. What I'm recommending is that 3-4 years ago on the floor, the legacy fund was brought up. And the motion was passed for $2,000 for each player per month for life. And it didn't turn out the way that the motion went. And there was 300. What's the surprise? Well, the surprise is that a lot of things that they changed to try to make it happen was supposedly for the betterment, by going through the pension rather than going through the regular legacy fund. Of course, you know, guys that were married, divorced, it hurt us a little bit more than some folks did. But I'm the kind of guy that believes that the PA, the one thing, that players are making more money today than we've ever dreamed of. Who's responsible for that? 2, The retired player is at the back end of the deal. And with the 10-year contract, guys like me and some of the other guys here, we're not going to be around the next time a contract is signed. So if we don't have or develop some kind of means of going in to negotiate or to fix some of the stuff that we're still disappointed about, then nothing's going to change. And so what I'm recommending to Dave, and I got some pretty sharp guys in here, that there's a group of guys, including legal, that can come to Washington and meet with the board, the executive board, or meet with DeMaurice, or meet with benefits to see how we can change some of this. Now, at the convention, I know that the disability board is being reviewed right now. I know that they put $22 million into vocational training for guys who retire from 1 to 15 years. I know that they put $6.2 million back into the PAT fund for guys retired 16 to 40 years. I know that the employment program has been launched. They've gone to every chapter. They've hired, I don't know what the number is, but about 60, 70 retired players now that are now working through that employment program. I know that the wives and survivor benefits are higher than they've ever been. It's almost like a lot of guys are saying, you know, I mean, how can like $9,000 a month for the first 3 years, and the numbers are just amazingly good. They took the fine money. The owners then matched with the fine money to give the wives a really respectable widow and survivors plan. So all these things that we've made changes with. And I see a lot of things here that really need to be changed. But I'm saying, what is the plan on how we're going to inform all of the players here about all of the new benefits they have? For an example, 3-year non-vested players now have benefits. 2-year non-vested players now have benefits. 1-year players now have benefits on approval. I just got my, so I finish and get this off my chest. The 2 facilities that are being built now, they've already raised the $255 million. The ground breaks in October for dementia, for Alzheimer's, for assisted living. It will be paid under the Mackey 88 plan. You know, we've already purchased the land in Dallas. We're opening another one in Dallas to give more benefits. Now, the reason why I sometimes kind of get a little edgy here, for 5 years, I can kind of pat myself on the back a little bit because I gave more money to retired players in Dallas than any other chapter in the National Football League. And they gave me every dime I asked for. And so there's a lot of players that are not getting benefits because, 1, they're either not connected up there, 2, because they don't know about it. And I like this platform here because there's a lot of players in the PA that are not happy. And we need to have some kind of a group of guys that can hold the PA accountable.
And Isaiah,
but you got to be able to get inside the room, inside the door, to negotiate. You can't do it in Vegas, and you can't do it on the outside. And if you formulated a group of guys or attorneys from the independents to represent the independents with the PA, I can get that done.
Isaiah, and I want to respond to this, but only with regard to the disability.
Huh?
I want to respond to that with regard to the disability. For several years, I've written proposed changes and put out why the changes are. And before the CBA was negotiated, A couple of years ago, we had a meeting here. Nolan Harrison was here, and one or two other guys from the PA. And I was going to talk on my proposals, what the problems were. Nolan walked out just before I spoke.
Yeah.
I've tried to get together with Dewey McLean in Atlanta. Atlanta's got the largest retired PA chapter.
Yeah.
I said, Dewey, I'll buy you breakfast, lunch, dinner, bring your guys. Just let me tell you.
Yeah.
Nah.
So,
You know, I spoke on a panel in California with D. I said, D, you know, I just love this.
I've had the same problem. I mean, I got 2 national programs out there now. You know, I've built probably 27 homes that have been given away, and the executive board turned it down. But I was able to network with the Dewey McLeans and the right people, got it to D. Maurice. He signed off on it. And you take for New Orleans, for an example. The city of New Orleans has given us all of the lower Ninth Ward, all that land. And we have built 8 homes there already. We're going to build 36 there. We're going to build another 36 in Baton Rouge. The Dallas chapter has built 12 already. We built them in Chicago. We built them in Cleveland. We built them in Houston. And I got turned down. Absolutely no. But until you're able to take your time, and just like the politicians use lobbyists and stuff to get bills passed, the independents are going to have to get more political and more open-minded to try to get some of the stuff fixed that you're upset about.
Well, you know what, Isaiah, I think I speak for Dave and Rob. You know, we appreciate you being here. Maybe you can help be a conduit.
I want to do that, because we have an open forum that you can actually tell the PA what you feel and what you think. A lot of players feel the same way you do that are a part of the Players Association. You got a lot of people that are not a part of no association.
Isaiah.
But this kid here, right here, that's played 2 years, that don't know he's got benefits, and he does. So how can we put together something here that can get you the new information for, like Miss Marshall, knowing that there's a new disability board that might be able to go back and file those claims. A lot of stuff that I just think that is old school information, like all knee operations and all the things that we're talking about. Those things now are available. You can go to the Orlando Medical Hospital clinic now for all of those, hips, knees, treatment for dementia. So there's a lot of stuff that's not like we want it, but it's better than it used to be. I'm making more money now as a retired player than I ever made. Is it a lot? No. But I don't get a chance to get any more money for 10 more years, because when the new contract is up. So am I going to sit around and wait for 10 years to fight for retired players, to try to get them to change the attorney that was talking yesterday about the lawsuit, that if they win, that this money that's been given to us for the legacy fund has to be redistributed? Am I going to cut my nose off to spite my face? Am I going to love the PA because I love the game? Am I going to love this group because I love the players? I love the game. I'm not a part so much of a PA or independent. I'm a part of one team, one voice, one locker room, no player left behind. That's what I'm all about.
Vernon?
Huh? Yes, sir. How many players? Players got none of the houses. Well, but my point though is okay. But you see, that's bad information. Let me just, the money we get, about $80,000 from the city of Dallas, that house has to go to a house that has been claimed, what's the word I want to use? Condemned. And so we have to pick, the players are the ones that's building the houses. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for all the guys that went to Vietnam and went to Iran and Iraq that put their lives on the line for us. Now, I understand. The point I was trying to make is that the deal was turned down and they didn't want to do it. And we were able to lobby and was able to get DeMaurice to change his mind.
Yeah.
Now that's the same thing I want to try to do for the players.
12:30.
Go ahead, voice your opinion. Okay.
You know what, Isaiah, I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah.
All I can say is D. Smith called me 3 years ago. We talked for an hour, and I gave him everything you told me.
Yeah.
And you know what? Not a damn thing happened. And my question is, where is the PA? They're not here.
Well, I come from the old school, and I couldn't go to LSU when I came out of high school, but now I can. I have a dream and I have a vision, and nobody is going to take that fire that burns in me away. I think you got a good group here, and I think you got a good group because it's all guys who play the game. The thing that's screwed up is management, and they're trying to get benefits for us. But we're going to fight against each other because we disagree.
No. We're not fighting against each other. We're fighting against a crooked system.
I understand how you feel.
No. That's not how I feel. That's the fact. The NFL tells you that's how you feel. I've corrected them.
How do you change it?
How do you change it?
I'm in solution.
Lawsuits.
Okay.
That's the only way you're going to change it.
Okay. Well.
That's the only way you're going to change it.
I wish you all the luck.
Well, hey, I don't want luck. I want my day in court.
Well, all lawsuits don't win.
I don't need no luck. Hey, I know they don't all win, but I want my day in court.
Okay, fellas.
All I'm saying
fellas,
to you is that
fellas,
I believe in solutions.
it's 12:30. The short guy's going to call lunch. We're going to lawsuit.
Boom 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 boom.
Jeff Van Note and now Sam McCullum. They either work for the league, they're employed by the NFLPA, but the saddest thing is they have no training in disability or medical care. So you have people that have no training at all making medical decisions that affect your life. And I remember that, and then I'll let John speak because.
Keep going, we're doing well.
I talked to Jimmy Giles recently. Jimmy Giles and I were teammates in Tampa for a couple of years. And John can talk about Jimmy because Jimmy is one of John's clients that he's trying to get disability for. And I talked to Jimmy in the last month. And Jimmy shared this with me. He says, you know, Dave, he said, I called Dave Duerson 10 months before he killed himself. And I said, Dave, you know, why isn't the disability committee giving me disability? Look at my injuries. I meet all the qualifications, but they keep denying me. They're giving him the lowest level of disability. The reality is, because of his injuries and you know, he qualified for Social Security disability, he should get full disability. And you're going to be shocked. Well, you're not shocked. You're going to find it interesting what Dave Duerson told him. Dave Duerson said, Jimmy, the Gruen Law Group tells us how to vote. What kind of scheme is that? That's the chances you have of getting disability. And, you know, D. Smith said about 3 years ago, you know, he had this big, at the Super Bowl, he says the Gruen Law Group is gone. They don't represent, you know, as far as the disability plan, I got rid of them. But if you look at the LM2, the Gruen Law Group, Larry Lombardy, I mean, They're paid by the NFLPA, the NFL, and the Bell Roselle Disability Plan. So the reality is, they work for all three of them. And Larry Lomity's answer was, because I asked him, you know, Larry Lomity is the lawyer that, when I complained enough, Roger Goodell called me. One day a PR called him. I took 28 minutes of his time. I wouldn't let him off the phone. And at the end of the conversation, Roger says, Dave, who do you think I am, God? And I said, no, Roger, but you got the power to clean this mess up. Well, he sends me Larry Lomity, a lawyer that works for Aiken and Gump. You know, Aiken and Gump is the 18th largest law firm in the world. And Larry was going to help me. Well, about 4 months later, I get an anonymous thread on the blog saying, Dave, you better be careful about what you say. And my editor, Robert Lee, he understands the technology way better than most people I know, certainly better than anybody that the NFL has. He traced it back on their IP address, and it came out of Larry Lomity's office. He can even tell you what desk it came out of. Larry Lomity's answer was, as well, it was a young intern, and she's been disciplined, and she learned a very hard lesson in life. And I'm thinking, that's how much the NFL or the NFLPA wants to help you. So, you know, it's just, you know, I'm never going to give up fighting for my benefits, and that's why the blog was started, because of the disability scam. I want to help the guys that nobody hears about. The Dwight Harrisons. You know, Dwight Harrison, his wife left him, and his son hung himself. I mean, you know, talk about a sad story. You know, and Dwight is seriously impaired cognitively. He may have a 3rd or 4th grade level of understanding what's going on. It's just a sad situation. And there's some really sad stories out there. And they can't afford to come to these types of conferences. They have families. You know, their brains are scrambled. They hear conflicting stories and information, and they don't know what to do. So, you know, you can't fix, you know, I can't fix everything. I don't know if I can fix anything, but what I can do is I can put the facts up on the blog, and you decide. And as I said, the blog was started because of the disability scam, and John Hogan. John Hogan's a great guy. I mean, he's fighting for all of us. And so, you know, I'm going to introduce John. And John can tell you, you know, some of the ins and the outs of the problems he's had. But, you know, the last thing is, it seems the longer that this, John Hogan has been a disability attorney for over 35 years, and I wanted just to correct one thing. John's going to talk about the disability and not the pension. Disability is what he does. And I've known John for 7 or 8 years, and John is the only disability attorney that I know that understands the Bell Roselle Disability Plan, and he's tried to change it. He's tried to get an audience with Roger Goodell, with Steve Smith, Gene Upshaw, but they do not want to, but they won't give him that audience because they don't want to hear what he has to say. And the reason I say that is, and I'm not going to steal John's thunder, but, and John will agree with me, I'm sure, that the current NFL disability plan is illegal. And John's going to explain why it's illegal. I've been seeking benefits from the NFL since 1979. That's a long time. And when I was the NFL's own doctors rated me 80% or greater disabled in 95, I was denied the benefit, told to go find a sedentary job, but to tell your employer that you need to rest frequently on the job. The bottom line is, who's going to hire you? It's just, you're damaged goods. And my question is, with the plan, some of the aspects of it that are just glaring violations would be the vocational aspect. There is no vocational aspect. In corporate America, if you become disabled, you see a vocational specialist and they'll test you. And they'll decide what you're able to do, what you're not able to do, and what types of jobs you might be able to do, and then you'll try it short term. And if it works and it pays a salary that you can live on, well, then you give it a try. But in the NFL disability belt plan, that's totally missing. The other aspect of it is, everybody on the disability board is either in an extreme conflict of interest, everywhere from Tom Condon, who's no longer there, to Dave Dorson, who was there, and he's no longer, he killed himself, to things go on. We keep hearing, they're going to give us less, but it's really more. And the latest thing that I've heard is, there's a couple cases. One is Stuart Andrews. He's up in player that played in the NFL. He lives up in Canada now, and he qualified for full disability. And the NFL, turned him down. And the doctor that turned him down never even examined him. You believe that? Never even Dr. Bach. He's the new Dr. No. I don't know where they get these guys at, but and Stuart sent me the email where Dr. Bach turned him down, never even put a finger on it, and but the next sentence he was crying for his $500 fee. Well, a couple years ago, Harold Henderson called Andrew Stewart, I think it was on some vacation day, holiday, or I'm not sure which one it was, and says, Andrew, we gotta work this out. Andrew says, nothing to work out, I want my benefits. Well, I spoke to Andrew about a month ago. As I said, Andrew, how's your claim going? Because you got another favorable ruling by the judge. The judge ruled, clearly, you deserve full disability. And he said, Dave, he said, I finally got those dirty, I'm going to leave it, the words off that he said, to pay, but I had to sign this non-disclosure. I can't talk about it. Now, in all fairness, what that's put his family through, what he's been through, if he did talk about it and he lost his benefits, I guarantee you, that's how he survives. And he finally gets it. So, you know what? I don't blame him, for not talking about it, because if he does, he'll lose his benefits. And he's fought all this time for it. And, and then Jimmy Giles told me, I'll let John talk about it, but that's the new scheme that the Groom Law Group, and the Groom Law Group, believe me, they run the disability plan. Make no bones about it. They are the ones that run that plan. And Doug L., they've done it since 1994, and the more claims that they deny, the more money they make, the more fees they get. And so, without saying any more, because John can enlighten us on a lot more of the details, I'd like to introduce disability attorney John Hogan.
do need to correct Dave on one thing. He said that the Pete Rozelle plan was illegal. Dave, illegal is a sick bird. It's unlawful.
Correct.
I also want to give you greetings from my friend and client, Jimmy Giles. Jimmy had wanted to be here. He planned on being here, but he's in tough shape. I think he is awaiting some back surgery in addition to all the other orthopedic problems he has, and it's pretty tough to get on a plane and get here. But he sends his regards and best wishes. I also want to say hello to my good friend, Bruce Laird. Bruce, as you know, has been a tireless advocate for getting better everything for retired players. And unfortunately, Bruce has a full-time job, so he can't advocate full-time. And he had a business engagement this week, but he sends his best regards, and I'll be back in touch with him about what transpires here. I was really, as you all were, just really taken with what Randy had to say. And in the work that I do with retired players, I'm so amazed when a player's had a long marriage. And Randy, even though you guys might have been divorced, I mean, you were still there with Jeff. And, you know, many of you guys, retired players, you're not the same person you were when you were married. And, you know, the guys that I deal with, and I think Dave would attest to this because his wife's been there with him too, you know, God bless the wives for sticking in there and enduring what they do. And certainly, despite all the problems my disabled player clients have, if their wife is with them, their life is blessed. We used to have a saying every time we would get together for retired players conferences or issues, and you hear the stories here. I hear new stories all the time. A lot of it's repeat of what we've heard. And the saying we used to say all the time is you can't make this stuff